Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Merry Christmas. There's a much higher quality version of the leaked Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer delivered on Christmas with unfinished visual effects, and during it, there's a scene of him seemingly going into a cocoon, and one of the villains, it sounds like Marvin Jones III, who's also in the movie. Streets are saying he's Tombstone, saying spiders have 3 life cycles, and between cycles, it can leave the spider vulnerable to threats. Those spiders that survive go through a kind of rebirth. Also, because Marvel has already said that Destin Daniel Cretton, the director of the movie, is using Spider-Man Brand New Day as a Thor Ragnarok for the entire Spider-Man character in the MCU, basically a soft reset on the creative heading forward into the next trilogy. This whole evolution that the villain in the trailer is teasing that Spider-Man is going through in the movie, and what looks like an organic webbing cocoon in the trailer, makes it seem like Spider-Man goes through a metaphorical and literal rebirth transformation in the movie, like he went through in the comics during this era that they're borrowing from for the movie. If you did not read the Spider-Man comics in the early 2000s, there was a J. Michael Straczynski run called the Evolve or Die storyline. During that, Spider-Man evolves his powers by literally spinning himself into a cocoon. Now, it's part of the Inheritors, the Morlun storyline. I don't think they're going to get into the spider totems in the MCU Spider-Man Brand New Day version of this, like live-action MCU stuff. But you can see how they're borrowing some of the plot elements from the comics, which is what Marvel does for the movies all the time. Like greatly changed versions of the comics, but based on some iconic comic book panels and moments. If you didn't realize, Spider-Man Brand New Day is also inspired by the comic book Spider-Man One More Day and Brand New Day comics. Same name as the movie title, but the movie plot is also very different from the comic books. Only some of the plot elements are similar. For example, Spider-Man One More Day is one of the most controversial Spider-Man comic book runs in history. During it, Aunt May dies, Mephisto offers to bring her back to life in exchange for Spider-Man's marriage to Mary Jane. He basically has to give up his entire life with Mary Jane, and as a result, everything he did with her, their whole relationship, going back to the previous classic comics back in the day, everything about the two of them was erased from the timeline. Also during this period, comic book Spider-Man has Doctor Strange and Reed Richards perform a global mind wipe to erase everyone's memories that he unmasked himself as Spider-Man during comic book Civil War. So the whole world forgets that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. And what does this sound like?
Did it work?
Basically what Marvel and Sony just did with Spider-Man No Way Home. Big change to that in the movie version is they didn't use Mephisto, but they did finally do him during the Ironheart series, so there is Mephisto now. The MCU just gave the Mary Jane relationship retcon wipe to Doctor Strange's spell as well. Comic book Brand New Day was the first arc right after that, with him going back to being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, more like he was in the early comics before he got married to Mary Jane, before he unmasked himself. And that is basically what they're doing with the MCU version of Brand New Day in the movie. But right after this, in the comics, they did the Inheritors, the Spider Totems arcs, Morlun, and it got super mystical and magical with the nature of Spider-Man's powers. Like, there was a mystical explanation for why most of Spider-Man's villains were animal-based, too. They introduced spider gods, they introduced this other character who's a powerful totemic spider deity, the Web of Life and Destiny, something that they also referenced during Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the Web of Life and Destiny, also referenced during the Madam Web movie. Also a very big part of the Spider-Verse game, which the movie was also inspired by somewhat. In Marvel Comics, the other entity bestows its avatars with greatly augmented powers and can transform them into humanoid spider monsters when they're in mortal danger or become enraged, Hulk style. One of the other spider gods, the Great Weaver, chooses Peter Parker, Spider-Man, to become the next avatar of this other character. During the storyline, Morlun, who consumes totemic avatars like Spider-Man, almost winds up killing him, causing Spider-Man to spin himself into a cocoon under the Brooklyn Bridge. He makes a bargain with the spider god, the other, Spider God, I've come to bargain, who heals his wounds and upgrades all of his powers and allows him to return to life if he rejects his human side and embraces his spider side. So they get really, really mystical, really supernatural with the nature of Spider-Man's powers in a way that the movies probably are not going to do. But in that comic book, Spider-Man agrees, then emerges from the cocoon reborn with way crazier powers and huge biological upgrades. Thus the title of the series, Evolve or Die, like he literally evolves because he almost died, kind of died. Like I said, I do not think the MCU is going to do any of the Inheritors or the Spider Totems, God-level storytelling. Like, it just becomes too much for the movie to actually deal with. In the trailer footage, if we're seeing Peter Parker Spider-Man evolve himself metaphorically and literally inside a cocoon in the footage, I think that they'll just have a simpler, more scientific-based explanation for what's happening to him. But he does emerge as a reborn, more mature, more self-actualized Spider-Man going forward in the MCU movies, like a metaphorical rebirth.
Rebranded.
This'll seem familiar because Taika Waititi did something similar with the Thor character during Thor Ragnarok, where he used the movie as a creative reset for the Thor character, and Kevin Feige said that internally, like the Marvel people themselves, viewed the movie as a soft reset or reboot of Thor in the MCU, like it was the first Thor movie in the beginning of a new Thor trilogy. And they are still talking about doing Thor 5 with Chris Hemsworth after Avengers Secret Wars. We will see if that happens. The Thor Avengers Doomsday trailer that also just leaked out, I did a video for that, so I'll link it at the end of this, seems like it is also doing a creative reset for the character after Thor Love and Thunder, and they're taking him more to what he was like during Avengers Infinity War before he got fat, before he got too silly in Thor Love and Thunder. You can see the footage of Sadie Sink a little bit more clearly in this version of the trailer. There's a lot more rumors about who she's playing. Seemingly she's an antagonist to Spider-Man at first, just based on her dialogue, and then later he winds up helping her out for some reason, like maybe she's just a misunderstood villain, not an actual villain. During the footage, you can actually hear her say, "You're a mess, Spider-Man. Don't get in my way. Otherwise, it won't just be your friends who don't remember who Peter Parker is," implying that she knows all about Doctor Strange's spell and is not affected by it for some reason. We will see why that is. There were rumors that she's playing a character from another universe, but there are other characters in Marvel Comics who are not affected by Doctor Strange's magic in the same way. For example, Doctor Strange's mind wipe does not work on the Hulk, so the Hulk remembers that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but Banner does not. There have been a lot of rumors about Sadie Sink playing a version of Jean Grey, and she'll just be the version that they eventually put in the X-Men reboot movie in 2028 that Jake Schreier is currently working on. The director of the Thunderbolts is doing the new X-Men reboot movie. Both Marvel and Sony have said absolutely nothing about her character, like why would they be keeping her character such a big secret if she wasn't playing a big twist character, but people are claiming that her character has psychic powers, which is where I think a lot of the Jean Grey rumors are coming from. I would not be opposed to Marvel using Spider-Man to backdoor introduce more core X-Men into the MCU before the X-Men reboot movie. Like you slowly introduce some of these X-Men characters that are going to be in that reboot movie, like the younger versions of the characters, before the actual X-Men movie. Just to give them more time to develop the characters so that when they do show up and they form a team together, you already know the characters, you've already had time with them, so they spent a lot more time developing them. Sort of like they did with the Avengers characters during Marvel Phase 1, like you meet the characters, you spend a lot of time with them before they formed the Avengers team. But I'm going to need to see a whole lot more Spider-Man Brand New Day footage of her character before I'm convinced on who she's playing. So you can let me know in the comments who you think that she's actually playing, because it seems like nobody can agree on that. Like there are so many theories. There's also a bunch of new footage of Spider-Man with the Punisher, now in much better quality, both fighting and yelling at each other. During the scene in the trailer, Spider-Man says, "What are you doing here?" And the Punisher says, "Saving your ass, can't you see?" I believe the idea is that Sadie Sink's character gets captured by Damage Control, and Punisher tries to help save her, Spider-Man tries to help save her by the end of the movie. When Punisher says that he's saving Spider-Man, that might have something to do with all the hand characters in the movie. Like you can actually see them, all those red ninjas. They're doing a much more comic book accurate version of the hand reportedly. And I think these scenes from the trailer actually confirm that, even though a lot of the footage are unfinished visual effects. Part of the reason for this is supposedly all this footage is from an October version of the trailer, and that was months ago, so they've finished all this, and supposedly the trailer is ready to release in shiny, crisp HD footage. So Sony and Marvel, why don't you release that crisp HD version of the trailer online? One of the other big bits of news recently is that Rosario Dawson's night nurse is supposedly in the movie and is back from Daredevil, Netflix, Luke Cage. She was in most of the Defenders series back in the Netflix era. I would not be surprised then if they go for the Punisher Spider-Man iconic Civil War moment where he carries him in for medical help, but in the MCU version of this, like in the Brand New Day version, he's bringing Spider-Man to night nurse. Because of what's been happening during Daredevil Born Again, and now Jessica Jones coming back in Season 2, and Luke Cage being one of the new characters to come back, maybe Season 2, maybe Season 3, we'll see. It might not be till Season 3, and it sounds like they'll eventually bring Finn Jones back as well, too. People have been asking when they're going to bring Rosario Dawson's night nurse character back because she was such a big part of those Defender series. But I think part of the reason is because they were slow rolling bringing back all this Netflix stuff, like just a couple characters at first, then slowly bring them back over multiple seasons of Daredevil Born Again. Also because Rosario Dawson has been busy with Ahsoka stuff in the Star Wars universe recently. But it's a lot like the Pedro Pascal situation where he is Mando, the Mandalorian and Grogu movie coming out next year too. We'll probably get another trailer for that really soon. But as you probably realize, Disney really likes the synergy between their brands because they already had him under contract for all the Mandalorian stuff. They wanted him for the Fantastic Four movie because it was just way easier to make that deal with him. Like, we already have you under contract for all this other related Disney stuff because of Star Wars, Mandalorian stuff. Why don't you just do this other Disney thing for us in the Marvel universe? And now they're doing the same thing with Rosario Dawson, who's been doing all this Ahsoka stuff in the Star Wars universe. Like, why don't you just come do some more Marvel stuff? Because we're doing more stuff with your character from the original Netflix series, bringing all those characters back.
I mean, I know that you're blind, but you see so much.
She also said a long time ago, like years ago, that she would love to come back when she heard that Daredevil was coming back, but this was before Spider-Man No Way Home, like a couple years ago. So I am sure the minute that phone rang, she's like, oh hell yeah, I will definitely come back for more Marvel stuff. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and if there's any Easter eggs or references that you spotted in the footage that I didn't talk about in this video or my previous Spider-Man videos, just write them below in the comments. My hope is that Sony and Marvel will release an HD crisp version of the trailer before the end of the year. Streets are saying they will, but I wouldn't be surprised if they hold it till next year. There just seems like there's way too much Avengers Doomsday dominating the news cycle right now, and they don't want to trample on that. But it would be wild if we get all these Avengers Doomsday trailers before we actually get a Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer because that movie is coming out before Avengers Doomsday. Marvel, please release some of that HD footage. We are also supposed to get a couple more Avengers Doomsday trailers for different characters in the next couple weeks too. Another crisp HD version of the Thor one will probably come out in the next couple of days. I'll do another video for that when it does. Then we're supposed to get an X-Men based one with Cyclops, and then we'll see what the other fourth one winds up being, like which character they wind up doing. Make sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of that stuff. Also, a big reminder too that Stranger Things Season 5 Volume 2 episodes are dropping tonight as I'm posting this video. That'll be my next real big video, so look out for that. Everybody, click here for all my Avengers Doomsday trailers, and click here for all my Spider-Man Brand New Day videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.